Not positive.
Thanks for sending them the agencies. What? You good? I'm good. So far.
Yeah.
I'll just press this button if I need it.
There's the asterisk.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I will call to order the first of several hearings this evening. The 2026 budget, bus replacement plan, and capital projects plan. Recognizing that we have a quorum of all 5 board members. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will pause for a moment of silent reflection.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Mrs. Regina May, Zionsville Community Schools Chief Financial Officer, to conduct the hearing this evening on the 2026 budget and on behalf of the school corporation.
Good evening. Welcome to the public hearing for the 2026 budget, capital projects plan, and bus replacement plan. This is the second step in the budget adoption process, the first having been our request to advertise the budget forms that was done in our last board meeting on August 11th. It's important to note that the information provided during this presentation is based on assumptions. The 2026 budget required forms of oath and permission to advertise, as well as a planning document created on an 18-month cycle. That is to say, we started the specific process for the 2026 budget after the June 2025 financial information was finalized and before key pieces of information are known. For example, our net assessed value upon which the revenue for several funds is determined has not yet been released. It was due August 1st. So let's talk about our budget process, because it's exactly that, a process with an end goal in mind. We start with the big circle representing our advertised budget, and we work our way in. The advertised budget is based on assumptions and historical trends. This is where we must advertise high enough to satisfy our needs in the final product, because you can always lower amounts, but you can never go above the advertised budget. Then, through the review process with the Department of Local Government Finance, also known as DLGF, we get our approved budget. We should get this by December 31st of this year. But we still aren't done. The last part is a more internal process, adjusting the budget even further to allow for emergencies and to adjust for the revenue that we should get based on calculations, but we know we won't receive. This working budget helps us stay within our approved budget and live within our means. The funds that are part of the budget process are frequently thought of as buckets, each with their own revenue sources and expenditure rules. With few exceptions, these buckets don't mix. The district has many other funds that aren't governed by this budget process. They still have their own set of rules and are audited, but they don't fall under this request to seek appropriations in this process. Some examples of those funds for ZCS are our school lunch fund, donation fund, and many of our grant funds. Our funding comes mainly from two places. State funding, which is about 87% from our basic grant, and about 13% of that comes from various categoricals, such as our academic performance grant, career and technical education grants, and special education grants. The other source of our revenue is local property tax, which supports the operations fund, debt service fund, and our two voter-approved referendum funds, the operating referendum fund and the capital referendum fund. The education fund is mainly state aid, with a small sliver of other capping off that column. The remaining funds are supporting the property tax revenue, with the operations fund also benefiting from both an interfund transfer allowable from the education fund, as well as our earned income opportunities. The rainy day fund is part of this process, but is not supported by a revenue stream, but rather the accumulation of cash balance being set aside for emergency needs, as well as other expenses, as directed by the board resolution that set up that fund. Our 2026 proposed budget is for $155 million. The top three funds being the most active, representing about 65% of the proposed budget. When we look more specifically at the categories of all of the funds in this budget process put together, you'll see that we plan to spend the most money on those who provide our instruction and where we provide it, which is the teacher salaries and benefits and then the debt service fund. Now, as we dive into each fund specifically, we'll start with the education fund. Remember from our earlier slide that the funding for the education fund is almost entirely from state aid. So the legislature determines the per pupil funding amount during their budget sessions. For 2026, we will receive $6,967 per student for foundation, and that's $286 more than we did in fiscal year 25. Complexity decreased overall by $23 from fiscal year 25 to a total of $4,001 per student. And that is multiplied by the number of students in poverty, which is defined as those in TANF, SNAP, and foster care programs. Looking at the math for ZCS, we start with the foundation amount of $6,967. We add to that our portion of the complexity, which is the $4,001 multiplied by 1.48%, for a total of $7,026.21 per pupil. Based on our current enrollment, we expect about $54.3 million in the basic grant portion of our funding. As you can see, our enrollment plays a key part of the revenue for the education fund. I know these numbers are small, but what I'm really trying to illustrate on this slide is our growth trend over the last decade. In the last decade, we have grown more than 1,500 students, almost 25% growth. And our recent demographic study affirms the continued growth into the future. Looking at state funding across the state, we see that the average funding per student for 2026 is $7,557.17. Our funding, if you remember, was $7,026.21. It's $530.96 less than the average student in Indiana. Applying that loss to our current enrollment projections equates to $4,103,258.88, less than average across the state of Indiana. We are the lowest funded school on a per pupil basis in Indiana due to the complexity piece of this formula. This funding reality is the reason that our voter approved referendum fund is imperative for ZCS. Now, looking at how we spend the education fund dollars, the education fund can be spent on expenses tied to educating students. For example, teachers, instructional assistants, student-focused technology, classroom supplies, building. Also, starting in 2025, the fund also pays for curriculum materials items. I'm going to jump around a little bit right here just to include our operating referendum fund in the expenditure conversation, because in ZCS, for 2019, our community approved the operating referendum in support of our teachers. And 100% of that voter referendum supports teacher salaries and benefits. Okay, I got out of order. So these are the 2026 proposed expenditures by category for the education and the operating referendum funds combined. The large green slice is the teacher salaries and the benefits, and when taken together with the instructional support staff slice, which is the yellow slice, that's approximately 90% of our proposed expenditures in these two funds for salaries and benefits. Now, backing up and comparing it to our historical trends, you will again see that our personnel costs, which are now the purple bar, are the largest portion of our expenditures in the education fund, with a growing allocation for supplies, which is the green slice, based on the legislative change in 2025, eliminating the curriculum materials fund and rolling it into the education fund. Overall, you'll see that this fund does remain consistent with our historical trends, with the larger increases in response to legislative changes in our 2-year collective bargaining cycle. And if you look historically at our operating referendum fund, it shows similar growth trends, but you'll notice again, this fund is 100% teacher compensation, all purple. Now, this also illustrates why our operating referendum fund is imperative for ZCS. But who does it pay for? It pays for approximately 1 in 3 teachers. That's about 165 individuals who support our students in positions such as our elementary STEM coaches, elementary literacy coaches, elementary art teachers, elementary music teachers, elementary wellness teachers, middle school art teachers, middle school band teachers, middle school orchestra teachers, middle school choir teachers, middle school PE teachers, middle school project lead the way teachers, middle school foreign language teachers, middle school instructional coaches, tech integration specialists, school counselors, school psychologists, our speech language pathologists, our E&L teachers, which is English as a native language, our customized content teachers, which is in our CLP program, our media specialists, and our kindergarten teachers. Again, approximately 1 in 3 teachers. This is why that operating referendum is imperative for ZCS. Now, shifting gears, I'm going to look more at our property tax supported funds. These are our operations fund, our debt service fund, our operating referendum fund, and our capital referendum fund. These are the 4 funds that are supported by our property tax revenue dollars. There are 3 main pieces to the revenue formula for these funds. Our levy, which is the revenue that we expect to collect. The certified net assessed value, or CNAV, which is also considered the taxable value of your home. So that's your gross assessed value, less all your homeowner's deductions. And then we have the tax rate. So the levy, which is the amount of money we're going to get, equals the established tax rate multiplied by your certified net assessed value divided by 100. So in some cases, these 4 funds are governed by maximum levies, others by maximum rates. No matter which pieces are the constant in those equations, the formula is the same, and in the end, it is the total of the amount of the levies that determine how much revenue we are going to receive. The big assumption in this formula that goes into this budget process tonight is the specific net assessed value for ZCS. While technically it was due August 1st, ours isn't historically released until sometime in mid to late September. This year with all of the changes, I'm guessing late September, maybe early October. So our community continues to grow, both bringing enrollment growth as we saw earlier, as well as the assessed value growth, which is shown on this map. With certified net assessed value changes in response to both area growth and the Senate Enrolled Act 1, estimates for this year have been particularly tricky to nail down, as actuals that have come through across the state have varied greatly from going down 5% to up 10%. So to help with this, we have engaged Policy Analytics to provide a model around our expected changes associated with the Senate Enrolled Act 1. Their model projects a modest growth in gross assessed value, which is the green line along the top. That also, in that equation with all of your deductions, leads to a decrease in the taxable value of the homes, or the certified net assessed value. That's the orange line that you see on the right going down for 6 years. The blue line in the middle is where we would have been without the deduction changes from Senate Enrolled Act 1. So reflecting back to the revenue formula, it means that to obtain the same amount of revenue with the certified net assessed value decreasing, the rate would have to increase. This unknown situation is why our advertised budget is higher than we ever plan our adopted budget to be. That target at the beginning that we showed starts to hone in on our adopted budget as our unknowns become known, hopefully in the next month. I'm not sure how this happened. I've got some slides out of order. Sorry about that. In addition to the potential revenue shifts with the changes in the certified net assessed value due to the deduction changes for homeowners and Senate Enrolled Act, we also still contend with property tax caps, where the property tax liability is capped at the 1%, 2%, and 3% of gross AV based on the parcel. So 1% for residential, 2% for farm, and 3% for commercial. New this year, as part of Senate Enrolled Act 1, we also had a revenue loss from a homeowner credit. Every homeowner will receive a credit on their bill of an amount up to $300. For reference, ZCS has approximately 10,238 parcels eligible to receive this credit. In the budget process, we must show the full revenue that we anticipate receiving by calculation. However, the tax cap loss and now the homeowner's credit loss happen after that. It's money we won't receive, so we should operate on a budget that allows for that shortfall. Both of these revenue losses are shared among the layering taxing units for each parcel, so we include this as an estimate until all of the budgets in the county are finalized and property tax bills are issued. This is just fine. I'm finding my slides. Specific to this, you'll see that ZCS is one rate on each homeowner's bill, but residents in our boundaries will have one of 6 different municipal rates. They will also have a county rate, a library rate, and so on their bills. Property tax cap and homeowner credit revenue loss since 2010. ZCS has lost $30.7 million due to the property tax caps. It's almost 3 years of property tax revenue that is lost for the operations fund over the last 15 years. In 2026, we're projected to lose an additional $3.1 million, broken out between property tax loss of about 1.5 and a homeowner tax credit of $1.6 million. While we don't normally equate operations funding to a per student amount, that works out to $412.36 per student of dollars that were otherwise meant to support school operations that we just won't get. So that's the revenue situation that supports 4 of the funds: the operations fund, the debt service fund, the operating referendum fund, and the capital referendum fund. So shifting again to the expenditure side, looking at the operations fund. You'll recall from the earlier slides, just to repeat, with the operations fund circle showing that it's mainly property tax caps, which is the green, property tax revenue, which is the green section, as well as the transfer from the education fund and our other earned income opportunities, which is things such as our facility rental and interest earnings. The operations fund can be spent on any cost associated with operating the district. In this case, it's salary and benefits of non-building level departments, which, so think about human resources, business services, the payroll, accounts payable, technology that is non-student focused, maintenance, utility costs, transportation, buses, and grounds. Overall, pieces of the operations fund pie are a bit more evenly distributed than the education pie was earlier, as this fund supports a wider range of services. But similar to the education fund, the largest proposed category still remains compensation, in this case for the employees who serve in support of student instruction. The purple slice is our contracted services for items such as utilities and insurance. And the gray slice is supplies, both of which are greatly affected by inflation and potential tariffs. The brown slice is our tax cap and homeowners credit revenue loss that we just talked about. In order to live within our means, we plan for this revenue loss by showing it here as part of the budget, as we are also legally required to do. So our operations fund expenditures historically stay fairly stable, growing in response only to inflation and sometimes student growth. And you will recall that in 2025, we appealed our operations fund levy and helped to right-size our maximum levy with our needs. So that's that jump in that second to the right column, second from the right column. Our debt service and our capital referendum fund, which is from the voter-approved referendum in 2019. These are our two funds that make up our debt side of things. So you'll notice that they are largely property tax supported funds as well. They do get a little excise and financial institution tax revenue as well. So our debt story, the two green lines are debt from our voter-approved capital referendum. The rest of those are all what's considered under the cap. Our debt is consumer debt. All of our debt, I said that wrong. Our debt is not consumer debt. All of our debt is capital in nature. So it's not the credit cards, it's not overspending on different things for supplies. This is all capital in nature. So it's how we support our instruction with an environment conducive to learning. So in addition to the budget tonight, this was also the hearing for the capital project plan. So the capital project plan is a 3-year plan for capital purchases and projects. So that's items over $10,000. This plan is a guiding document only and does not indicate funding or board approval for these items. As the time becomes right, and if these items are still right, we will bring these items to the board for consideration. We have items and then we have our projects. And this is also the hearing of the 5-year bus replacement plan. We do evaluate this annually as it relates to funding and our student needs, and we also keep in mind our desire to keep our fleet age under about 12 years old. So both the capital project plan and this bus replacement plan are available in detail on our website, as will this presentation and a complete budget form packet required by the state after this presentation. Thank you. You may have any questions?
So many. Mainly just commentary towards the impact of the new legislation and how devastating that's going to be. But do you have any sense from any of our peer districts or neighbors, is there anyone that has gotten their AV from the state?
Yes, there's about 40 of the counties
Okay.
are out. Historically, we're one of the last, I don't know why, but we are. Some of them are seeing some modest growth. Some of our peers in Hamilton County, one of them went up 1%, one went up 10%. So it's really kind of all across the board. I've talked with our partners at Steeple, and everything they're seeing across the state, sometimes they're surprised pleasantly, and sometimes they're surprised negatively. It's almost a free-for-all, what's your best guess? So at this point, we are really using wide estimates when we complete this, because there's really no telling where we're going to land. And that homeowner's credit piece is up in the air even more because we share the ultimate impact of that, with all of the layering units, based on percentage, once all that becomes known.
Any indication from the state, I mean, if it's so goofy to me that we might not get our assessed value before we have to, you know, meet again in October. Have they made any considerations to altering deadlines, allowing for different deadlines? I mean, it's just, doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No, I think that is why they don't formalize and certify our budget until December 31st. So while we have to adopt and go through all of the pieces with the 30 days between and all of that ahead, we have to actually be done by day in November. So we can still modify and drop numbers or change numbers, especially as we go through the Department of Local Government Finance review process. There's really been no mention from the state on putting teeth behind making the county submit by August 1st. So.
What gross assessed value increase did Stiefel assume for the graph?
Policy Analytics did that graph,
Policy
and I
Analytics.
believe they assumed about 3.5% growth.
I mean, it seems consistent for us, but is that conservative, do you think?
It is a conservative growth for us. I would expect, we normally see a 4 to 6% on our normal years. Granted, some of the recent ones haven't been normal, but traditionally we're in the 4 to 6 range. So their 3.5 is pretty on the conservative side. I'm kind of hoping we grow out of a little bit of some of this impact,
Yeah.
but we won't grow out of all of it.
What about on the operations fund? I seem to recall that there's some limits on the maximum levy growth quotient. Like what is the maximum the operations funds can grow? And doesn't that sunset, I mean, was it capped at like 4% growth?
It was, but
Do we know what that is?
it's continued.
It's still 4%?
It is this year.
Okay. And that was going to sunset, right?
It was going to.
Okay.
So we'll see if it, sunsets again or if they extend it in this next legislative process.
Okay.
The one that was on the operating referendum did sunset,
Okay.
and they actually let that one sunset. So for 2026, that cap is gone.
So it's just our base operations levy that we're still stuck at the 4%, even though,
The formula would, I think I saw the formula was gonna take it to 5.5 or 6, but it's capped at 4.
and it's possible that our assessed value is growing at 7 or 8 or 9 or 10%, and we can't capture that.
Right, we cannot capture any more than 4 regardless. And as a side note, they also took away our ability to do another operations appeal. We can't do
Right.
that.
But at least we're growing on that appealed amount.
Right. We
As
are
opposed to
growing
the
on the
previous
appeal we
amount.
got last year.
Right. That's all for right now. Sorry. Thanks.
Well, just, I guess one thing to point out is I think people, just sort of reiterate, when you say our net assessed value, we're talking about the catchment area for Zionsville Community Schools. I know sometimes people think like, well, the stuff going on in Boone County for LEAP and all that is going to have an impact on us. It's really, I mean, it's going to have an impact on us, but not in a direct financial way in terms of our tax levy, right?
Right, it's our tax base that truly is the parcels within our boundaries. So all the other things going on in the county may add people wanting to move into our area, increasing our enrollment, and have those other effects on making our gross assessed value of homes go up, but it doesn't actually change what's happening in our area.
So my can of worms question, that maybe you have an answer to, maybe you don't, but, so I know one of the mechanisms that's been discussed for specifically municipalities to be able to sort of compensate for revenue loss or SAE1 is local income taxes. If the town were to institute a local income tax, would that have any benefit to us, or would that all be captured by the municipality?
Schools do not get the local income tax.
Okay.
So it would not benefit from us unless the town wanted to find another way to offset costs that they charge us, or they can do other revenue sharing, but the local income tax would not come directly to us. The town would have to come up with an agreement.
Cross my fingers.
One more question on the interfund transfers. Did that amount change that we're allowed to transfer?
No. We are still limited to 15% of our entire state tuition support.
And the rainy day fund, we're not budgeting to include new balances for that. We're still carrying over balances that we've.
Right, so the rainy day fund cannot include any new balances. It can only be off of cash balance it's in it right now, less any appropriations that we actually have for this year. So we have more than the $5.1 million in there, but we do have some appropriation that we're saving for a rainy day to happen in the next 3 months. Should we need more than the $5.1 million that we're asking for next year, we would just go through an additional appropriation process because we do have more cash balance in there than I'm asking for permission to spend.
You have to come back for that.
Yes, we would have to come back for that.
So if someone wants to find all of this good detail, which, you know, I hate to give a class on this, on our new website, right? So we have our new website. Is it basically in the same kind of family tree? If I look at it, you've got written down, go into our website, departments, finance, budgets.
Yep.
That similar, so if someone at, you know, online or at home who's listening to this or watching right now, they can go there and they will be able to find all that.
At the moment, they will find the bus replacement plan and the capital projects plan. Tomorrow, they will find all of these slides and the required forms.
Excellent, thank you. And the bus replacement plan, I assume you've built in, you know, tariff type issues.
We did on the estimate of the prices, honestly, their best guess of what they're gonna be 5 years out. So, I mean, it changes every year, we'll update 5 years. If you look at last year's, the 2029 numbers, were probably lower than what I'm listing the 2029 numbers are now. So yeah, we're planning document to see how close we can come, if we can keep to that pace, which we really, really hope, because that's how we got to the point where we needed to replace 42 buses a few years ago. So we're gonna try our best to keep to this pace so that we keep cycling through and keep our buses kind of younger than our kids.
Any other questions? I think at this time, Regina, we need to accept public comment. Has anyone signed up to speak? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? And again, this would pertain only to the presentation that has just been made. Okay, hearing none, I will close public comment. And that completes the agenda for the 2026 budget, bus replacement plan, and capital projects plan. So I will adjourn that hearing and call to order the hearing for collective bargaining under SCA 390. Recognizing that we still have a quorum of all 5 board members present, and Dr. Kaufman will lead us through this hearing.
Good evening, members of the board and members of the public. The 2019 Indiana General Assembly enacted legislation, Senate Enrolled Act 390, codified in Indiana Code 20-29-6-1B, requiring a school employer and school employees to hold a public hearing and take public testimony to discuss the items described in the Indiana Teacher Collective Bargaining Law, specifically Indiana Code 20-29-6-1A, before engaging in formal collective bargaining. Therefore, Zionsville Community Schools leaders that are here present tonight, which includes myself, Mrs. May, and Mrs. Nelson, our HR Executive Director, as well as our Zionsville Educator Association co-presidents, Mandy Bernard and Cindy King. We are here to convene this public hearing in accordance with Senate Enrolled Act 390. The board and its representatives would like to thank the public for being here this evening. And as with all public comment before the school board, the parties request that all who speak at this hearing limit their comments to the subject at hand and speak concisely and cordially. So at this time, this hearing is now open for public comment, as our formal bargaining procedures can begin next week, September 15th. Has anyone signed up this evening for public comment on this topic? or does anyone wish to speak? I would also like to mention our appreciation for our partners, and we look forward to a productive session in our bargaining as we begin. Thank you.
Moving on, we will adjourn the collective bargaining hearing and call to order the regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees for September 8th, 2025. Recognizing again that we still have a quorum of all 5 board members. First item on the agenda is public comments. Has anyone signed up to speak at this time? Is there anyone that would like to speak generally at the regular meeting? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Yes, good evening, board members, and Mrs. Kissel, if you might advance the slide just one time, or maybe 2 times. We are coming off a wonderful weekend. A huge thank you to the Zionsville Lions Club for all of their energy and effort in putting together a wonderful fall festival parade and weekend celebration. We had many student groups who participated across the course of the weekend, both in the parade as well as in various presentations down at Lions Park. As well as our food service team, led a group in the parade, and many other individuals who participated. So lovely weekend, community building. We really enjoyed that opportunity. And while we think of our students as their individual selves, and we like to celebrate all of their interests and passions that they bring to us, we do from time to time spend considerable energy talking about details of measurement and academic progress. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Chris Devereaux, and she's going to share a little bit of data that has been recently released, as well as some of the assessment practices that are on the horizon for this school year. Mrs. Devereaux, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. For those listening to the podcast, excuse my voice, as I was at an outdoor concert Saturday evening and sang way too much. And at 55, my voice has not recovered yet. So thank you for your patience with this. It has become a tradition here for us every fall to go ahead and give an update once the school year has started. And we've received the data from a lot of our assessments to share that publicly. And I'm thankful that in every year that we've done this, we've been able to do a lot of celebrating. And so let's get started with a few things. How do we know what our students need for instruction here in Zionsville? We use a lot of different assessments at all levels in order to meet our students' instructional needs. And that goes everywhere from formal assessments like NWEA, state mandated assessments like iRead, all the way down to our teacher observations and one-on-one conferencing that they do with students. Our data tells us that our students are doing exceptionally well. We gave spring NWEA, and in math, the national average, as you know, is a 50th percentile. Our K-8 students' national percentile is in the 76th percentile range. For reading, they were in the 71st percentile. So our students are coming to us well above the national average and ending the year that way. Our iRead data for our 3rd graders, we had 97.4% of our students pass. And I cannot thank the teachers, parents, and administrators enough for all of the work on early literacy, because we also have 0 students that we had to retain. With the new law, if we had students who did not pass or did not have a good cause exemption, they were going to have to stay in 3rd grade, and we had no students who had to do that. All of our students who attended summer school passed, and we're able to move on. So I just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work. We also every year do dyslexia screeners, and here in Zionsville, about 5% of our students are identified and receive services. You have seen this slide every year for several years. I call it the evolution of iLearn. I started this several years ago, way back, and I've added to it, as you can see at the bottom. For this coming school year, all schools are now going to complete checkpoints. There also is going to be a brand new summative test at the end of this year, so we do have another change to our state required testing. The iLearn checkpoints, there are 3 of them. We will give one, this is for grades K through 8, grades 3 through 8. We will give a checkpoint right after fall break. We'll give a checkpoint right after a winter break. And then we'll give a checkpoint right before spring break. And then that summative test in April will continue like it always has. And some of the differences with the checkpoints, it's going to be in math and ELA only. There are 20 to 25 questions for the math checkpoint, 20 to 25 questions for the ELA checkpoint each time. They cover different standards at every checkpoint. So checkpoint 1 covers a set amount of standards, checkpoint 2 different standards, checkpoint 3 different standards, and it leads to the summative. I want to take a moment to thank Christine Squire for joining me. We have been going around to all of our elementaries and middle schools, giving an iLearn Checkpoints presentation to all of the staff so that they have a good understanding of what is coming. And then we will also be drafting and sending out messaging to parents in October before we get to the first checkpoint so they kind of understand the purpose of the checkpoints. The checkpoints are formative in nature. They're not punitive in any way, and you probably won't see any splash about them in the paper or on the news. They are strictly for information for the schools leading up to the April summative checkpoint. School, we will receive reports and parents will receive reports. The great thing that the DOE has done is create a family parent portal, so parents will no longer get the litany of emails from us with all those secure documents of their students' scores. Instead, they'll be able to access a parent portal and see the results of iLearn, iRead, IAM, and other state testing as well. That summative will happen again in April. It is changed a little bit from last year. There were some pilot questions on that, and so that has changed. So we continue in this evolution of iLearn as we go to a new testing format this year. In iLearn last year, I'm really pleased and proud to report that ZCS ranked in the top 4 in the state of public school districts in language arts, top 3 for math, top 3 for both language arts and math, top 2 for social studies, and we were the top public district for 4th and 6th grade science. So thank you again to our parents who send well-prepared students to learn and our teachers on their daily work with kids. For SAT School Day, remember we did that test in March to all of our juniors. ZCHS ranked in the top 2 for evidence-based reading and writing in the state, top 3 for math, and top 2 for kids who scored high in both of those. Last year, when Karen gave a kind of a summary and overview of all the successes of our graduates, some of the things that I just want to point out again that we always share during this time, 63% of our high school students received an academic honors diploma or technical honors diploma. Students took almost 2,000 AP exams, and 85% of those exams they scored a 3 or higher. That's incredibly impressive. 62 class members of the 2025 graduates participated in industry-recognized certification courses through J. Everett Light Career Center, and I love that we have kids who are going in a multitude of different pathways to meet what their passions and goals are. I just want to end again by saying that we're really fortunate that our families send kids who are ready to learn. And so thank you to the parents and the community members for supporting our schools in that way. And then our teachers who do the hard day-to-day work with our students. We couldn't do it without all of these people. And then of course, last but definitely not least, our kids. Our kids show up excited, engaged, and ready to learn and belong here in Zionsville Community Schools. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just one, maybe 2 questions. When looking at the numbers, going back to MWEA, do you know, are we steady? Did we increase? Hopefully not decrease. When I see red, I always think red is a way we've gone down. I think you did that as a calling it out the color, but how are our numbers? Are they, 76th percentile, about where we were last year, 2 years, 3 years ago, up or down? Do you have a feeling for that?
I do. Thank you for pointing out. Yes, red was just a standout. It is not a negative in any way at all. When it comes to our math percentile now for K through 8, we're actually increasing from where we have been in the past. I do believe that that is based on all the factors I mentioned, on top of the fact that we have research-based instructional materials that add to the great work our teachers are doing, and so we are seeing gains in those. When it comes to our reading, our K through 4 elementary numbers actually increased. Our middle school stayed the same over the past couple of years. We now have, again, a K through 8 research-based program for literacy, so I anticipate seeing these numbers increase as well to go along with the great work our teachers are doing.
So looking back, say, 5 years ago, we're seeing an upward trend if
We
I
are.
put words in your mouth.
Yes, you can, you may, and we are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Devereaux. And if the board has any other questions, we'll carry on to talking about the wonderful learning environments that we're always working to improve with the help of our partners at SCIM Corporation. So Victor Landfair is here to provide a construction update this month to talk about some of the projects and ways in which we are continuing to enhance the learning environments for our students. Victor, thank you.
Dr. Kaufman, and thank you, board. Appreciate the opportunity to come back here in September. We're here in July, so we have made a lot of promises that we would be ready for school, and I think we delivered. I want to talk about maybe a couple of the less glamorous projects that we completed this summer. We replaced the temperature control systems in Boot Meadow and Stone Gate, and we also replaced the fire alarm systems in PVE and middle school. And I say they're not glamorous, but they're obviously very critical to the operation of the building. And there's kind of systems that you don't know that they're working, but you definitely know when they're not working properly. And those were targeted back when we completed the update to the facility study, delivered facility study. So this is part of your overall plan of sort of staying ahead of the life cycle of these systems and not having to replace them on an emergency, but rather proactively replace them. So as I had stated in July, we finished up the systems in both Boot Meadow and Stone Gate. The only other thing we have to do is sort of that final analytics and commissioning piece. One of the things that the district has done in the last several projects with temperature control, and that is not only do you have a warranty and a service agreement, but you also have sort of a 2-year commissioning. There's sort of built-in analytics to these systems. So it's analyzing that system and reporting back to the district and to their facilities team if things don't look right. So it's sort of AI, if you will, in temperature control. So rather than waiting for things to not operate or discovering it through complaints by teachers, we hope that the system will sort of tell us if we have things that don't look right or not operating, all with the goal of trying to have a better, environment, comfort for all those occupants in the building. So that's been a system that I think has been very useful for the district at several buildings. So we incorporated it into these systems as well. And so really we're just doing the final touch up of those systems. I will say that I believe those systems, that replacement is to be completely transparent, and I would guess maybe less than, 1% of the occupants even knew we were doing the project, which is not very glamorous for us, but we're glad that it went that way for staff and students. Also, fire alarm systems, we replaced the system at Pleasant View and Zionsville Middle School. Completed a lot of that before school. Just a few things that we were touched. I appreciate the building staff suffered with us a little bit. Some of those final tests were right before school. That was a lot of work to get done. We had a little hiccup, but again, some of the technology is several years old. So just working out the bugs, incorporating updates to that, but we did get our certificate of occupancy obviously prior to school. So another successful project with the fire. Ongoing projects with your athletic facilities continue. The tennis court renovations, if you recall, we had poured all the concrete. We have a period of 30 days before we could apply the coatings. That has transpired, so we've finished our coatings, our gates, and our sidewalks, and now we started our court striping. Actually, I probably had some more striping going on today, as you'll see in the photographs, as well as the tennis court equipment. So if you get a chance to drive by, you'll see the southern courts there are the last courts to be striped. I will say to the general public, we're not done yet. We still have a few loose ends to take care of in terms of the tennis court equipment, fabric springs, landscaping, some of those other final touches before we can call it completely, substantially complete and turn that over to school and public use. So bear with us. For example, landscaping, October is the more optimum time to plant. So but getting very close and on schedule with that project. Likewise, the softball and baseball field renovations are continuing. Mass excavation and our perimeter curbs and fence posts. We started our dugout improvements. Not very exciting yet with my photographs. I apologize, that's about as good as it gets right now. But we very much anticipate some exciting new improvements, starting to put the system down for the artificial turf on both buildings, and anticipate all that work wrapping up before cold weather sets in this fall. The other project kind of flew under the radar a little bit, Pleasant View Elementary. We did some major site work and drainage improvements. We finished all the concrete sidewalk replacement and curbs this summer. A lot of concrete got poured this summer, as well as the sub-base and asphalt patching. Along that, you'll see that we got our lawns and grading next to the sidewalks complete. All of the light-colored sidewalk was replaced. I would guess, I don't have precise numbers, but 75–80% of the sidewalks around that building. It's a big building with a lot of sidewalks replaced this summer. We also do have another project that we have got materials ordered, and that is we're adding some gutters. If you recall, seeing early in the summer, we removed all that concrete block, sort of an old strategy of draining directly off the roof down onto the grade into a French drain. That was all pulled out. We'll be adding gutters and downspouts to that. We think that will make an improvement. If you've ever noticed PVE, the brick kind of gets a little bit wet down at the base. That's based on that old French drain strategy. So we're going to address that here yet this fall. We'll get that completed. And finally, well, not finally, the next big project for our 2025 projects is the locker room addition. If you've noticed, as you've driven around the high school, we did demolish the outbuilding, the old 70s locker room building. We also took down the training room next to the wedge entrance there, sidewalks. We're in that stage where we're doing a lot of things underground that you don't see. We are putting a lot of systems, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water mains underground. We did put some valves in to set us up for demolition in the future. We did do a little bit of quarter ceiling and lighting replacement this summer as part of a bigger lighting and ceiling replacement project associated with the addition. We started demolition of the entrance to the natatorium on the east side. That'll be encapsulated by the new addition, locker room addition. And we've started our excavation, and again, under slab, storm, and sanitary piping. Great photograph there of our demolition activity. There's sort of an aerial picture. You see piles of stone and excavation work going on in preparation for both the site utilities, and there's a lot of utilities that go right underneath the new addition. So we really had to sort of move everything south and out of that footprint so that we could start foundations. Our goal here is to really get started with foundations and hopefully start steel. So we'll sort of get that excitement of seeing something vertical here in the next 60 days. The idea that we'll have steel up, we'll be starting floor slabs and starting some exterior walls if we have an opportunity to come back to the board in 2 months from now. And then finally, I get off to the races with the Early Learning and Education Services Center project. As you awarded the bids back in August, thank you. We are rather one of the major things that we're bidding process. We're coordinating. There is a high pressure pipeline there. We need to coordinate with the manufacturer of that with Country Mark. It's outside the building footprint, but we'll be crossing that, so there's some coordination with that. But we have started our site layout and looking forward to some major excavation activities over the next 60 days. Mass excavation, it may just be a lot of dirt moving, quite frankly. Hopefully get started with a little bit of underground utilities yet. But very important that we get started while the weather's great, and we look forward to getting a good start this fall so we're ready when it gets going in 2027. That's my brief report. Happy to answer your questions.
Any questions from the board? Thank you very much, Victor, for all of your effort with so much happening, and I know you work really closely with Mr. Doublestein and many others on our team to bring these projects to life. So thank you for coming tonight to provide the update.
My pleasure.
All right, thank you. All of that construction activity, and of course, we are an employer of significance in the community. I just wanted to mention that Robin Nelson and our team will be present at the job fair hosted by the Boone County Chamber that is taking place next Thursday, late afternoon. We're certainly always looking for great people, and we have a few openings across the board, whether they're certified positions and also classified positions. So thank you to members of our team who will be participating in the job fair next week. We're also off with a new set of various series coming off of our strategic plan and really building on some of the feedback that we received in that process. So I'm really excited to talk about a few of these. They're all video storytelling elements to help highlight many of the great things that are happening in our district every single day, and certainly highlighting our people because they are the heart of our school community. So we have a Voices of ZCS staff series that we are starting off. We're also having an Inside the Classroom series that many of you maybe have seen some of the highlight from AP Physics in recent weeks, and also Students on the Rise, where we're highlighting individual students with some of their points of passion and activities that they're pursuing. So really excited to get this series underway here at the start of the school year. We also have an opportunity for families to engage with us through our membership with the Central Indiana Educational Services Center. Many individuals in our community know the CISC because of driver's education that's available and Indiana online coursework that is available. But due to our membership, we're also able to promote 2 different webinars, the first being later this September on the ABCs of substance abuse and vaping. It is an online Zoom opportunity, so there is information available both in our Friday 5 as well as individual school newsletters for families who maybe are interested in learning more. So we highly encourage individuals to participate in that activity. And at the end of the month, special thanks to all of our PTO groups across our 6 elementaries, as well as the staff at our elementary schools. We have the largest fundraiser, really the fundraiser that takes place in our elementary settings on September 26th, our elementary jogathon. So really excited to bring that back to the community this year and to celebrate with our students wellness and also that camaraderie and unity that comes with a school-wide event such as Jogathon. So again, special thanks to PTO for all of their energy and effort and many of the sponsors that are supporting that event. And that this evening concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Any questions, Dr.
We'll move on. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Questions or discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda, including minutes of previous meetings, personnel, special requests, which may include overnight and out-of-state field trips, acceptance of donations, disposal of surplus equipment, ECA and security equipment purchases, contract renewals, non-renewals, and attorney-vetted actions, monthly financial report, and claims in the amount of $6,510,356.93, and payroll in the amount of $4,169,405.67.
So motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Before I move on, could we read the donations? Yes.
The Trailside Elementary PTO donated $9,000 to teacher enrichment grants. At Stonegate Elementary, the Gene Haas Foundation donated $1,000 to robotics. And at the high school, Mary D. Krasik, DMV, donated an Olympic model CH4 objective binocular microscope and case at the cost of $500 to the science department. So thank you very much for donations.
We have no old business up for consideration, and the first new business item, number 6A, policy repeal, first reading.
As board members, you may recall at the end of the 2025 legislative session, among many changes that we discussed was the repeal of a prior law that essentially changed the way teacher appreciation grants will be approached in the state of Indiana. Back in 2019, there was a law created which had initiated the teacher appreciation grant, and it required local school boards to have a specific policy that outlined annual renewal language. Every year, the school board was asked to renew that particular policy and had to do so by a particular date. Because the law has changed, and in essence, we are awaiting new guidance from the Indiana Department of Education, the new program will require school corporations to engage in a competitive grant process. Rather than dollars being awarded, there will be a competitive process by which, as outlined in law, a maximum of 20% of our teachers will be eligible to receive the teacher appreciation grant. We still do not have that full guidance at this point in time, but through the Indiana School Boards Association legal team, they recommended repealing the policy as it stands presently. There's no action this evening. This is a first reading as you're considering the next step, and we plan to bring this item back to you for consideration and action at the October 6th meeting.
Yeah, you know, what I would just say, I'm just, you know, I think it's unfortunate that fewer teachers are going to be able to be recognized for their hard work, and I'm sure part of it is just a way not to put money into education, public education in Indiana. But so anyway, that's just my 2 cents as always. But.
By repealing this, we're not going to create a gap with current law. This is, you know, outgoing law, new law. This doesn't create a gap for us that we're have a problem.
No, I appreciate the question. It was certainly the question we posed to ISBA if we should wait. And the thought process was that no, because the current policy does indicate a submission by September 15th, that we go ahead and proceed with initiating this process that we're repealing. Some districts have already repealed in one meeting, but we felt it would be best to go along in accordance with our policy to examine this over 2 readings.
No action required tonight, so we will see this again in October. Moving on to item 6B, permission to advertise Zionsville Community High School photography services. I see Mr. Delson approaching us.
Good evening, board. As we have done previously, a little over a year ago, for the elementary schools, our photography agreement here at the high school is up, and so it's time to engage in a process to evaluate new proposals. It provides us a lot of advantages, but especially to seek out the best service and the best value for our students and families. And so, just like we did previously, we're asking permission to advertise for that process, to seek proposals from qualified vendors that will then be analyzed through a process. This advertisement permission does not obligate you to make any decisions as a board. We'll bring a recommendation to you at the end of that process that will heavily involve the team from the high school who have already begun their thinking and outlining of the items that they would expect and look for from proposals. So again, seeking your permission to advertise to begin that process. The timing is fairly critical so that plans can be made for upcoming school year and the processes that even have to begin in the summer. And so that's why it comes to you here for this on the September
What terms are you asking for?
Well, there will be a number of terms. I believe you've seen the example that happened from elementary school. We had, in that case, about a page and a half of various things that we were seeking out, some of which are current things that we enjoy and benefit, some of which are more open to explore what's current in the industry and otherwise. Some of them are very specific. Those will be continue to be vetted with the high school team, make sure that the attorneys will be agreeable to those as requirements, and then we'll vet them as folks respond. There are times that certain companies are, as we experienced in the elementary situation, there were elements of that companies don't provide, so they tell us we don't provide that. Then we have to make a choice about whether that's responsive or not. That's certainly to happen this time as well. There will be a whole score of things, I believe, at this point in our drafting of that, of our own specifications. Now, that's not the full of the RFP document. That document is nearly 10 pages long or more, but the specifications themselves are approaching 2.5 pages, I guess, at this point. Cover everything from the services that are required, individual portraits, senior portraits, team and individual athlete portraits, customer service, ID badges, all sorts of things, and specifics of what Ms. McDaniel and her team would like to see.
What about years? I mean, how long of a contract are you asking for commitment?
We have not sorted through that at this point. There's advantages to looking at multi-year. What we ended up doing for the elementary school that worked well for us is we did a single-year term with the option to renew, and that's something that we have done as a past practice. If that's something that you feel like would be appropriate, you would certainly entertain that and take that under advisement. I will say to that, and we're in September of the current school year. There's a lot of planning that goes into what Mrs. McDaniel needs to do. So knowing well in advance, it can be a pretty in-depth process too. It's not a process that folks like to engage in necessarily every single year.
Yeah.
So there are some advantages to looking at longer terms. We'll talk about that and make sure that it's a part of our proposal.
My understanding is that the RFP will cover, as you kind of gave a long list, and I appreciate that, it's going to cover everything from staff badges to student pictures, all the way to athletics, club sports, everything like that. It's going to be all included, is that correct?
Yes, now the staff ID badges that come from HR are a different thing, but yes, it'll include every current photography service that we utilize. And if there are things that the high school would seek to expand upon, it would ask for what are options and what are offerings. And as typical practice is that, at least as I've experienced it, that if there are other things we find out down the line that we'd like to see as well, the providers will offer those, and we can work out those on an individual basis too.
There'll be carve-outs, I assume, if, for yearbook staff, they can take photos. It's not exclusive that we're not allowed to take any photos.
Certainly, and in fact, in this agreement, as has been the case in the middle school, at least in one of the middle school agreements, yearbook services are not included. At this point, we're looking at just photography services. That is a difference between this and elementary, and that's past practice as well.
And then on the RFP itself, I think you said in the elementary, it sounded like, company X could do 1, 2, 3, 5. They couldn't do, say 4. Have we considered, a complete package, similar to what, we go through with any kind of operational budget? Can you do it all, or what portions can you do? And, does that give us a better, break on costs if we go that route?
Typically, a typical practice would essentially be that you need to be responsive as a vendor to all areas of the agreement. And if you're not responsive to all of them, then we can disqualify you. We can choose to perhaps entertain. An example might be in the process for the elementary schools, there were certain companies that would provide photography services, but not yearbooks. And some that would do yearbooks, but not photography. We made a decision at that time to eliminate everyone who did not perform both. There are efficiencies to be gained. There's much more work on the staff side in that case to divide that up, and there was not a financial benefit or a service benefit to our families and our staff. In this case, when it's photography, my experience is that essentially every photography provider is only willing to be the exclusive photography provider of those services. So if someone offers a proposal in which that's not the case, then we'll evaluate that and we'll look at that according to the criteria that are set forth in the document. My experience, however, would be that that's typically not what photographers, those who remain in this space, and that dwindles. There are fewer and fewer every year. That's not their typical practice.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the leadership team to advertise for ZCHS photography services, for service proposals as presented.
Second.
So motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. No other items on the agenda, is there anything else to do? I would like to just take one moment actually and say thank you to Janet Mann and Dan Layton and the team for the new ZCS website. I spent some time on it today. It's much improved, just well done, and pass on our thanks to that team for that. So, anyone else? We are adjourned.